Hello, Jake.
Hey, man, how's it going?
I'm vibing right now, Jake. We had a very productive pre-show. I think
we really did.
I would argue it was our most productive. So productive that I'd like to bring it up at the very first thing of this show because we turned it into content. So we can talk about it after our drinks. But yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, make people wait for it. Except for the several 14 people that were hanging out for the content themselves.
Yeah. Check out the chat. They're getting it there. They know what's going on in there. What do you got today, man? What are you drinking?
I have the last of the Long Johns from last week.
The Long Johns.
Long
I don't
Johns.
know how to do a Philly accent. Long Johns.
You got it kind of right. The Long John. Yeah. That's it.
Made with good water.
Water.
Water. I don't know. I don't know
got?
what it is, man. The Philly accent is one that it doesn't live rent free in my head, so I can't just summon it when I need to. It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to find in media that is not directly from here. You gotta really.
Yeah.
People always get to New York or to Baltimore.
I drifted to New York when I try it. Yeah, so it's
yeah. The other mistake people make though is the Baltimore thing, because if you go to the western counties, it's gets pretty Baltimore-y. Baltimore. Okay. That kind of thing.
Baltimore.
Yeah, that's getting down. That's that weird little crossover.
The resolution's too high for these accents for me. There's to me, there's one accent from Philly to Boston, and then Boston gets a special one. That's what it is for me.
To most of the U.S. population that's are offended by this right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we could do micro regional accents in Canada and see how you do. We can go that way if you want. But
I could try it sometime. That sounds like a good thing to do when there's zero space content to be had.
Yeah.
What do you got?
All right, next pre-show we'll do it. So I sent my wife to the store to get a beer for me, and I said, just get anything that looks like a pretty label. I put her in charge of it, and she came back with an American beer.
Oh, look at that. A small unknown beer.
Yeah, an unknown. I don't know if you guys have heard of this one. They're pretty rare, and almost as rare as Tecate. So they're,
Fun fact: worked on that Lagunitas website one time, and they, as part of the agreement, delivered us a lot of beer to the office. It was great.
Did you get this one? The California IPA, 6.2%.
That's the standard.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought the standard Lagunitas had a green label. I thought that's what the.
I mean.
Good though.
Yeah. So breaking news. Breaking news out of the pre-show. So if you've been following, the space media, it was the 25th anniversary of the ISS, Jake, this past week.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was
25 years old. And there was this news story that came out that the Frank Rubio had lost a tomato in March and never knew where it went, and they found it this week, or who knows when. Honestly, we don't know when they found this tomato, but they have announced that they found this tomato.
Sometime in the last couple months.
Yeah, sometime between September 13th, when it was first publicly acknowledged, and now they found this tomato. Have not seen a picture. Have not seen where this tomato was found. There was no description of where the tomato was. So in the pre-show, which you can get at off-nominal.com/Discord, join the Discord. We go live in the Discord for 40 minutes or whatever before the show. And usually we're just screwing around talking about whatever, arguing about stuff sometimes. Yeah. But today I've submitted a FOIA request for pictures and descriptions of locations of this tomato. So we've got a case number, case 2400291FJSC. We submitted it to JSC. So we're going to let you know when they get back to us on the pictures and location of the tomato when it was found. I submitted that I was willing to pay up to $250 for this information, so we're gonna see if I get billed. People may ask why we didn't submit an exemption, but reading the federal code, we would have needed to prove that this was likely to contribute significantly to public understanding of the operations or activities of the government. So we thought we wouldn't necessarily meet that criteria. So, how do you feel about this project?
I'm pro this project. Although I can't tell if this is a good or bad sales pitch for the pre-show though, because you could say it's a good pitch because it's really funny to FOIA a picture of a tomato, but we also just like basically charge people to watch us read federal code live, and that was like not a good sales pitch for
We also, in our defense, we also looked through Cameo to see who we could have do videos for introducing the off nominees this year. So it wasn't all lost.
That's true.
And if you out there have any suggestions on who we should pay, like sub $50 Cameo range is probably fine. We can pay people to do our off nominee introductions in a couple weeks. So I don't know. I feel like we have to turn around time.
AI to make videos of the people we want to do it.
I was thinking that too. That's definitely possible.
Like that creepy like Morphe AI video, like
yeah, Ed
like,
Baldwin
quite real.
And Danielle Poole doing the intros. All right.
Hi, Bob.
All of this is burying the lead because in addition to the FOIA project, I approved a project this week, which was that Jake was allowed, in our business meeting, Jake was allowed to make a PowerPoint. No, not a PowerPoint, a spreadsheet for this podcast. And boy, did he. Would you like to tell us about your work here?
Okay, so we were thinking that a good show content this week would be that we check in on Artemis, because we had a Starship flight recently. You and I have not like properly caught up on what that felt like. You know, sometimes we just call each other, we do shows. We haven't done anything yet. That's just like we still haven't
even talked about it. I don't even think we've talked about it really.
Not even offline. Like we have not talked about a Starship at all, which is other than like a few messages. So we thought we'd catch up on that, and then we're like, well, you know, that's also like one of the pacing items for Artemis, so maybe this would be a good opportunity to check in and see how things are doing, like what's on schedule, what's not on schedule, what does it look like. And so there's obviously a lot of stuff to keep track of on dates for Artemis, like all the different things contributing to it, and when it was promised, and when those promises changed, and when things actually happened. And so, you know, I was like, this is a spreadsheet use case right here. That's what it needs to be. So I just started making it this morning, and I thought it was going to take me 30 minutes, and it took me 4 hours. So, because I had to go and read like every article to find out what was going on with it. But it was a lot of fun.
This is a serious spreadsheet. We're going to be video heavy show today. If you would like to get spreadsheets in your life, but maybe we should put that behind the part where we talk about arguably the coolest launch that's happened in years. Not to definitely put my thumb on the scale here, but
okay, well, I'm glad to know where you stand on it. It was pretty rad. Okay, so some of the people in Discord were bugging me like, we need to know how you feel about this thing, and there's this sick hype video that's basically put out today, which is really good. So yes, the answer is this launch was pretty rad. It was pretty good.
That's your statement on the matter?
So one of the things that like really, and you can see it when it finally takes
Jake.
off. I'm leading up to it, all right?
Jake.
I'm trying to like.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
What do you? Okay, no. Give it to me.
This launch kicked fucking ass. It was the best. It was the best. Look at this thing.
I mean, this launch did break ground. Like, I don't know how many other rockets have blown up twice on the same launch. Like, that's pretty impressive. So, no, but okay, that shot there. So you can see when you're taking the picture of the rocket from far away, it's like pretty wild because the scale. I don't know what it is, but you can tell the scale. One more, like when there's people in it. That's a pretty good shot. This one. Okay, so I don't know what it is about, like Starship must have transcended some sort of normal scale of rockets where even at this perspective, you can tell like That's not how big rockets are. That's a different thing. Rockets aren't that big. And I could like I've sat that far from a rocket before, and they're smaller than that. And like you can tell, like from a distance, it would be really hard to like visually like pick out the size difference of like Falcon 9 versus like Atlas, or like that's all. They're all in like the same weight class, right? And this is just different. It's just very different. And that was something that struck me with this video. It's just like, man, that rocket is big. That is a big rocket.
it's the plume length, right? Like it's very. I mean, Saturn V is probably the only thing you can compare it to that had that plume that went on, because you know that Saturn V is 360 feet or whatever it is, and it just goes on way bigger than the rocket is. Yeah,
it's also really bizarre. Like it kind of throws off your. I don't know what this is. It's like we've watched so many rocket launches that we have just like a natural feel for them, and like they just like this is what a rocket launch looks like. And I think the ratio of first stage to second stage on this is so weird that it like kind of trips me out. You know, just like they're almost like the same length. You know, and like it looks like two of the same size things just stacked on top of each other, rather than like a bulky first stage and a smaller second stage.
I don't think I appreciate that until you said it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's like, and apparently they're going to stretch it out, so it's going to look even weirder. Like they're going to be like the same size at one point. Like I don't know what the thing is there, but the depot is supposed to be like this huge like pencil thing. So like it's going to be wild.
Like Jake, all right. First thought I had when this thing ignited, right? First of all, let me set the stage as well. That this launch happened around my breakfast time. And I eat breakfast every single day with a 3-year-old who really likes rockets. So, like, I had a good baseline for how excited I would be about this launch. When it came off the pad, like, I had this reaction of, that's a legit rocket launch. Like, that thing's doing a rocket launch right now. You know, whereas the first time...
showering the coast with concrete,
Yeah, but even the slowness of the first one, the slow acceleration, right, because all the engines were out and everything was blowing up. Like, it had this weird lumbering sense to it, whereas this was just straight up, like, it was hitting our muscle memory for how a rocket launch should look coming off the pad. So I was pumped. Like, I don't know what it is, if I've just gotten jaded on rocket launches because we've watched 8,000 of them. But like most rocket launches, like whatever. Like we talked about on a show a couple weeks ago, like we're not waking up for middle of the night rocket launches, especially Starlink launches if they were ever streamed on YouTube. So, but this was like the first one in a long time that felt like the rush of holy shit, this thing's working and it's going the right direction.
Yeah,
and it's doing all the things.
Definitely special about it, because it's like it felt like. A lot of those early SpaceX launches really felt like you were watching things change, and like watching a Falcon 9 Starlink launch, they does not accomplish that. It's just like, like they can't even bother to put it on, like put a host stream on it, right? So this felt like felt like that again, right? Being able to go, it's gonna get different now. Awesome.
And like, even comparing this to the first launch of the stack, like that one, I admittedly was not in the best state to enjoy that launch. I was in a rental car outside the Denver airport driving back from the Space Symposium. So it was not like did not set myself up for the viewing experience, but the sequence of events that happened on that launch was confusing enough that like I stayed in trying to understand what's happening state rather than just dealing with the euphoria of a rocket launch.
Enjoying it. Yeah.
And this felt like the ship testing phase of Starship, which, you know, the whole time you're riveted with like, number one, this looks amazing. Number two, it's working. It's doing a thing. And number three, I wonder how this is going to go wrong next. And then, I mean, they had... no one thought hot staging was going to go right the first time. And it was the least...
That was awesome. Yeah.
But like, no, I have nothing to say about the hot staging part because it just worked and it looked awesome. It's like, great. They nailed it on that, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
the thing I love that I didn't know was coming was the staging of the booster engines turning off in like sequence, like
like
that sort of
cool.
like multi-step, like that was pretty neat. I was like, I wasn't thinking that was how it was going to be, and I was like, this is cool.
I didn't really think about that phase before, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to pull up the video of that because it did just look. I don't know, man.
Power down that many.
I just, I went into this with you dunking on these old shitty Raptors they were going to throw into the ocean, and like it went amazingly. It's perfect.
Well, they tightened all the bolts, Anthony. Didn't you hear the work
They did.
backlist
They did.
there?
Tighten all the bolts.
Oh shit, it's leaking. Let's just go around and tighten every one of these, just like an extra quarter turn.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everything blew up eventually, but I don't know. I feel like I was able to tap back into like just a dude excited about rockets for a couple minutes on this one, and I was very pumped that it went as well as it did because and then there's obviously the whole discourse of like, was it a failure or not? And I don't know. I was like, God, no, it was not a failure. Like they did so many things in a row. All of it went spectacularly up until the moment when it didn't. I'm not sure we've gotten resolution on why the ship lost telemetry and then was the AFTS triggered, but like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I really couldn't care.
Well, like that whole question, was it a failure or not, is like, it's not, it's missing it's not asking the right question. Because there's two parts to that. There's like, did the mission fail, and is the program a failure? And for Starship, those are two different answers.
That's a good way to put it.
For every rocket before SpaceX ones, that was the same answer. If the rocket blew up, the program was in trouble. That's just like, if SLS had blown up, bad day.
Congressional hearings,
that was,
and
everything would have gone wrong. If this blows up, it's like, well, there'll be another one soon. It's like, whatever. Like, so you can't ask it that. Like, it's too short of a question to ask. It's like, did IFT2 fail? Well, yeah, it blew up twice.
Right.
But the program made significant steps forward, and that's like what's really good, right? Because you solved the hot staging issue, like you said. That was a huge unknown, and then the launch pad didn't blow up, so that's
still got a launch pad, yeah.
whatever the upside down rocket bidet, whatever they call it now, is working, so that's good. So like, that's why it's like really exciting, and we know that, right? So we're watching it, and we're seeing those two things happen after the hot staging. We're just like, yeah, we made it. Doesn't matter what happens after this. This is a double check mark win in our books, right?
Even the fact that the ship got blown up like basically at the end of its burn. Like, okay, great. That's awesome. Like,
if it didn't blow up, then it was going to blow up in 90 minutes when it hit the atmosphere. So it's fine.
I mean, it would have been preferable if that happened, but
Yeah, probably.
It is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I think that's unqualified great day in my book. It was awesome. I do have the only stuff that you have to figure out is what we're talking about next, which is just the general timeline overall and how quick they can send a couple other starships up there, because they've got a bunch of them. They've got more than they can fit in the buildings that they've got. So, assuming the launch pad is actually fine, which it did great, then that was going to be the next question of like, all right, when's the next one? When are we doing this again? How quickly can we get iterating on this thing? There's the Artemis pressure on Starship, but there's also the Starlink pressure on Starship. There's a lot of questions about which things come first for the Starlink or the Starship roadmap overall. Like, is getting this thing working as an expendable launch vehicle with the testing that happens after each stage does its job? Like, that's the part that they'll work out as they go. Are they going to do the operational bits as they fly all the other parts like they did with Falcon 9? Because that's the thing that I feel like we forget, that, when Falcon 9 was starting to fly, we literally all watched as they just were like, well, we're on borrowed time here with this first stage coming back in. Like, let's try some stuff with it. And eventually it resulted in them landing it propulsively and reusing it. But we went into this program saying that's a launch one requirement, is like soft touchdown on the ocean. And that was a total afterthought in the first round that SpaceX did of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely like trying to compare Starship's development to Falcon 9's is really interesting, because it's like, I don't know, like there's parts of it that feel like it should be like a synergy, like Falcon 9's the tick and Starship's the talk, right? Like they had to invent landing rockets on the first one, and that was really hard. Now they just need to scale it up and reuse the upper stage. So it's like doing the same concept but a little bit better. So you're like, well, it should be easier, but then at the same time, it's like, I don't know, man. It still is going to require some work. So it's like, what is that with landing on the chopsticks or whatever. That's okay. All right, that sounds like possible, but hard, So we'll have to see kind of what that looks like. But yeah, no, there's still a lot of, to me, there's still a lot of paths this program can take. Like the paths sort of narrow for these things as you develop them, right? Like what the vehicle is for. And I think that we are nowhere on that question yet. Like right now, it's like pretty clear what Falcon 9's job is, and what like the job it's doing now is great. It's gonna keep doing that job for a while, and then they're gonna get rid of it. Like we know what's gonna happen there, right? But like Starship's like I don't know what the job is yet. Like it's got a lot of jobs and it doesn't know how to do any of them yet. So like, I just don't know what the situation is yet.
Yeah, there's always a part of my brain that does not, like, I wouldn't say I have an allergic reaction to it, but the whole idea that the Starship itself is the thing that will go everywhere to deliver stuff everywhere is still a tough one for me to get around, versus it being like the ultimate Earth to orbit and back solution, right? Like you get your cargo flown in on a 747, but that doesn't drive to your house and also deliver your packages to you. It's like the way that we've optimized transportation around Earth is optimized transportation means for each leg of the journey, and making that as efficient and well-rounded as it could be. And we're going right to full reusability, and this thing touches lunar dust on the way down. Not that same ship will fly back and forth into re-entry and whatnot, but you get my point.
Is it going to be the cargo ship, or the 18-wheel truck, or the delivery van, or like the parachute? Like, there's lots of different kind of steps to a journey, right? So
that's why part of me still is like, I don't know, this like New Glenn with a reusable upper stage architecture makes more sense in my head for Earth, and then you've got reusable bits that do the other parts, Well,
especially with all the stuff, all the new, like, we just talked to Tom Mueller about his company, all that kind of thing that's happening. It opens up a lot of different possibilities where, like the idea of New Glenn being just a Leo truck is like, well, it's actually maybe kind of smart. Like, like that's just get really good at that.
That's what they're intending,
blast like 1,000 of these like, impulse space cargo things attached to payloads and let them go wherever the hell they want to go after that. Who cares? Like,
I'm willing to buy into the fact that the next 20 years will be Starship delivering everywhere, but I am not yet willing to concede that the 2050s looks the same as that.
That's probably true.
It's probably a more efficient use of our resources in the next 20 years to have a stack that looks the same that goes everywhere, so that we can get really good at doing space operations and understanding what actual business opportunities are in space and what the actual economically viable things are. And then it will specialize. That makes sense to me. But I'm not sure a Starship-shaped thing is what will land us on Europa.
No, probably not.
Which was always, for the record, my least favorite part of those early Starship presentations was like, they went from look how near term this thing is to like, we're standing on Europa. And I'm like, all right, it's like a cool sci-fi vision, but I feel like it undermined the first part of your presentation where you were like, we can do this in 5 years. Which I guess, Jake, could they have done it in 5 years?
No, they can't.
Should we crack over the spreadsheet?
That's the first take from the spreadsheet. The IAC presentation from 2016 did not come true.
All right, I'm gonna pull it up on the screen. Everyone watching, mark the time code. We're like 20-something minutes in, and you can go watch this later. Or what are you gonna do with the spreadsheet? You gonna post like an export of this, or?
I'll just lock it and make it
do a view only. Okay, we'll put the link in the show notes for everyone to peruse. All right.
It's not.
Give me your thinking and some takeaways, and you tell me where I should scroll around on this thing.
Okay, so first of all, what data did I put on here? So just for fun, right at the top, I have that IAC schedule that they had in that slide. So the initial like Starship schedule, he had like, this is when we're gonna do this booster testing and ship testing and the orbital testing and then the Mars flights. I put that on there just as like a reference point because it's kind of funny to look back on that. There it is right there. So I copied that over to the spreadsheet. And I really wanted to have it on because I don't know if you remember, we did a show. Was it on Miko or was it on this show? I can't remember. Maybe it was even with Martians. But you and I talked, like we checked in on Starship like a couple years after that presentation, 2 or 3 years
Yep.
after. And I think the show title was called Starship on Course because we went back to that schedule and it like looked like everything was right where it was supposed to be. Like there was just the booster testing was a little bit late and everything else was like bang on. And we were like, wow, this is like weird. Like an Elon timeline's coming true.
Do you remember what era that was of Starship though?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think they were just starting.
Here we go. We Martians 65.
Yeah,
I think this got cross-posted to Miko, I think. Oh no, we did part 1 here and part 2 on Miko. That's what we did.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. So October 2019, right? So that's when that was. So that is in the era of they just did Starhopper is when that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we were beyond carbon fiber moment and all
and
that.
the booster testing was supposed to have started. According to that thing, the Starhopper was like a year behind schedule, but not too bad. Still within the window of ship testing.
I see it over here. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So on the original ISC 2016 timeline, we had propulsion development. Why do you have this going back to 2014? Oh, okay. I see. This spreadsheet has moved left since I looked at it.
Yes, it has.
So we had propulsion and structures, and then ship testing kicking off in Q3 of 2018, and then booster testing in Q3 of 2019, which is actually where Starhopper landed.
Yeah.
Which I assume we should take that as meaning ship testing. Is that what your assumption is?
Starhopper to me is ship testing.
This is all ship testing.
Yeah, that's the ship testing era. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You can see it. It's funny when you put them all in this, like this is all by quarters, right? So like when you like zoom out to that temporal resolution, it's like, oh yeah, like there was like very clearly a time when this is what they were doing, and then they stopped doing that and moved on to the next thing, right?
Yeah. That was a lot of flights in a very short amount of time. That looking at it this way, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So, so I put all that stuff on there, and then I put the actual flights on there, and then I went on to some, the next two sections are the Trump and the Biden administration's sort of like promises or schedules. So like what NASA says is going to happen in terms of Artemis, right? So I have like some of the original announcements on there and the transition, and then basically everything past today is all just like scheduled dates for stuff to happen, right? So you got like
love it.
Artemis II, Artemis III, all that kind of thing going on there. I have the Gateway stuff on there, the lunar landings. I even put Dragon XL on there.
Yeah, you did.
So those are like our reference dates for like our baseline. Under that, I have a yellow section, which is all of the leak schedules from Eric Berger's article from a year ago. If you remember, there was that great. We had the show, pop it back up on the screen, that show, right? If we just pop that back up there. So I put all those dates on there to see, because I thought,
including the Prophet. I love that.
The Prophet, when he thought Artemis III was going to happen. So that's on there too. And then what do I have? Okay, and then I have the GAO report. So that came out last week, I guess, last Friday.
A week ago.
Yeah, a week ago. So this GAO report came out and said that, basically I read it this morning, the long and short of it is Artemis ain't happening on time. That's just not going to happen. Here's 15 reasons why it won't make schedule. So I have their Artemis 3 date on there, as well as some of the milestones for Axiom that's supposed to hit for their suits and stuff. That was in there. So I put that in there. So we can kind of compare that to see where that's coming. Then I have all the awards, all the green stuff there is all the contract awards.
So many things in this. This is amazing.
Yeah. So you can kind of see when formulation starts, right? When do these things kind of get delivered? I put Dragon XL in there for you as well, and there's some question marks about its existence everywhere past that because there's no other milestones.
Amazing.
And then I have some astronaut selections in there. I have Artemis flight milestones, so things they actually achieved. Just kind of trying to track like where the booster is and where EUS is. And that's kind of it. Oh, some Gateway milestones too. So there's not much on that, but you can see where Halo was. And then just for funsies, I put some other reference points in there, like when the show started, how many Falcon flights were at those times, things like that.
This one section of your spreadsheet is the real detail, though. Falcon 9 lands, we march starts, Miko starts. Like, boom, boom, boom. Very.
Yeah, can you tell we were
good.
inspired? Yeah, interesting. And I put EFT1 on there just for you because I know you love that.
Yeah, man.
Mission.
I mean, that EFT1 fits in this little quadrant of the path to this show existing. So.
Kind of. Yeah, your NASA social.
That's just a huge gap on the spreadsheet between that and anything else.
There's
it's crazy.
Huge gap there.
That is a big gap. All right. So you hit me with your takes after having reviewed all this data. Okay.
So I mean, the thing that drove us to this first was really this GAO report. We wanted to make sure we covered that. And so, their thesis that Artemis III, the first landing, is not going to happen on time. And so I really wanted to see what I could look at in terms of figuring that out. And I think I have to say that we are underselling how much Artemis III is not going to happen in Q4 of 2025. There is a negative % chance that is going to launch in 2025. It's dire. So if you zoom in on this section 2024, 2025, I don't know, can you see my cursor in there? If I do that, can you see it?
No, I can see it. I can see it.
So you can see IFT2 here, and then all the way down to Artemis 3. Zoom in on that section there. Okay. So that you can see where we are right after IFT2. Mm-hmm. And then we have the original moon landing date is supposed to be right now.
Love it.
That's the Mike Pence date. Yeah. Okay. So that's not going to happen. The original Artemis 2 date is still supposed to be this year. And then you can see Artemis 3 next year. So in this period, this is 8 quarters between now and Artemis 3. Let's talk about everything that has to happen.
Okay.
So we'll start with the big one. Mm-hmm. So we just watched the not quite first orbital flight of this rocket. And in the next 8 quarters, they got to get the rocket working, get the ship working, invent and get the tankers working, invent and get the depots working, fly at least 30 to 40 of those in that time to fly 2 human landing missions to the moon. They need to land one of them on the moon and prove that it works. Then they be able to build the second one and fly that one. And then plus any other test dates in there. So that one already looks I'm not seeing that in 8 quarters. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one.
Especially not having any detail out about the propulsion system to land on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
What are those little guys? I don't even know if we know the name of those things yet.
The side engines or whatever?
Yeah. Is that a thing? Is it still a thing?
Yeah. I think they said they were going to use the main engines for most of the descent, and then when they got close, they were going to flip over to the little ones so it's
okay.
not.
Have we seen them? Has there been a hardware test of it?
No.
Is it a thing?
I don't know, man.
Because this is SpaceX. This is not Blue Origin, right? If and when there's hardware for this, we will just have photos of it the whole time. Right? It'll be out there. It'll be obvious. There'll be people this sounded different at McGregor. I've compared it to all the audiographs of all the tests that happened over the last 14 years. This is not the hangar opens and there's a fully built Artemis ship there. We will have we will be able to, from NASA spaceflight streams alone, do all of the component tracking that NASA requires for full reliability paperwork on this vehicle. That's how detailed this is going to be. So
this is dark, and especially because we have to fit the uncrewed demo in first. How much time do you need after the uncrewed demo to check everything over and then get the paperwork stamped and say it works before you fly the next one?
Right.
It's not going to be a week. It's got to be some amount of time, even if they dispose it, and if all those flights are disposed, whatever, but they still need some time to go over that. So that thing has to fly Q2 of 2025 or something. I don't know how fast it's going to be, but
right,
everything that has
you're
to
saying that
the
timeline
also has to happen.
You're saying that there's not 8 quarters until the moon landing. The first moon landing we care about is the one before that. and that's
Yeah, that's
only
like the big
6
pacing
quarters
item, right?
away or whatever. Yeah, it is funny too when you think about Apollo, like how many lunar modules were just like ditched in the testing of Apollo. You know,
Mhm.
7, 10, like 9. What did 9 do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Something else.
9 was
Forget.
the 9 was the test. It was the first crewed test of the LEM in Earth orbit.
Yeah, and then the one the 10 that went down to
They
the moon, but
flew.
not to the moon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I actually looked that up because there was the first LEM that flew was Apollo 5. It was uncrewed and they just flew it around in low Earth orbit. So that was like early, like January 1968. And so it took from then until July. So that's of 69. So that's, 18 months
Mm-hmm.
of time between the first time you flew that engine in space before you trusted people to land on the moon with it,
Yeah.
right?
With
And Apollo
with
moved
way
fast.
more risk taking and the entire national effort behind it. Like,
Apollo moved fast. Like, let's be clear about that, right?
Right.
It was a fast program. It happened
Yeah.
very, very quickly. So I know this is SpaceX, but Apollo moved fast too. So that is an interesting thing to
Yeah,
think
I
about,
mean-
right? When's the first time we fly a Raptor, like whatever this landing engine configuration is? When's the first time we fly that? And then how long do we need before we feel happy putting astronauts on it?
Listen, I'm here for the SpaceX exceptionalism all day long, but I do think with a 2-year gap in the timeline of Starship testing, a little bit of that shine is worn off. Like, I really am really curious when it's 20 years from now and people are writing their books about this era, if there is
yeah.
a marked change in the way that the program was managed and handled in that gap. And like,
Right.
was it all paperwork for 2 years? No, like they didn't have stuff ready.
I don't know.
What was it? They hired a bunch of people from NASA that seemed to be like, Gerst and leaders and all these people who were like, make SpaceX fulfill its role as the boring option. It's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that gap is definitely a thing, right? When you look at this, and it's obviously a lot shorter than the EFT1 gap, but like that is a big period of time, 2 entire years. Yeah.
And the orbital testing was supposed to start in Q1 of 2020. So you can kind of think of the Starship basically being 3 years behind schedule according to the very first idea, right? That's if you really want to like put a number on it.
Yeah. Which like,
it's
whatever.
3 years behind schedule, which is fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. But like that tells you that even SpaceX is going to be, struggling to meet this unrealistic timeline.
Yeah, and I'm someone who doesn't really care about schedules in this way. Like, I really don't care what people projected of a schedule, especially when it's like so tied up in all this stuff. I care about it from the angle that you're taking, which is what are the things that have to be done or that we need to see visible evidence of in the next, several months.
And we'll
because
talk
when you
about,
compare it to
we'll talk about
smaller
suits in a
programs,
second.
like when we talked about Eclipse last year, from the outside, sometimes you can feel like, how much is left? Like, strap the engines on the freaking lander and put this thing on a rocket. Like, how much could possibly be left to do? And here we are a full year later, and we're still weeks away from the first one launching. And that's a tiny little moon lander comparatively.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you said everything that needs to happen on Starship. What else?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll add one more thing to Starship, and this is not good news if you are someone who thinks that we have a chance because it's SpaceX. The GAO report talked about this a little bit, but basically there is this whole part of the development sequence because Starship and Orion have to dock in low Earth orbit. There is a full end-to-end test you have to do with the software talking to each other. So Lockheed Martin and the Orion software team are now a critical dependency for HLS to be developed. So, and the GAO report says there are 4 different interfaces they have to invent because the operating systems are very different, and they have not agreed on a process on how to do that yet. So that's where we're at with that. So
that's a little one. Yeah.
That's a fun one to think about, right?
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had not thought about that. I was like, I'll just talk with Orion, whatever. I just wasn't even thinking about it, but it's like,
This is not Kerbal. You don't slap the Clampatron on. Yeah.
No, you don't just run into it and then the magnets work. Yeah.
Boink, and they bounce around a little. You gotta turn off
Ka-ting,
SAS for a second.
Yeah, just go to quick, zoom out your speed a little bit so that it locks together, and then you can time warp. But anyway, so that's on there as well. So yeah, I'm not super confident about that too. The suits. I'm looking at the report. I think the suits are in not as bad a shape as I thought they were. Like, I still think they're going to be a pacing item, but like I don't think they're going to turn 2 years into 6. I think they're going to turn 2 years into 3, and that's whatever. That's fine. Like, yeah. So that's still, like, looking at the GAO dates on there. Like, they just did their PDR. I guess is supposed to have happened now, and they got to do like 4 reviews in the next like 6 quarters. So it's like it's gonna be fast for them. So we'll see. We have those pacing items now. We'll be able to kind of know, like, when did the CDR actually happen? When did the certification actually happen? That's
Are there
an interesting one.
Tests planned before Artemis 3 of the suits themselves?
The report said that they were going to do tests, but not like in space tests. They were going to do like stuff at the NASA Center said they were. Yeah, like vacuum chambers, and then like a bunch of the ones like the gravity machines where you can get in them and it's like simulated gravity and you can walk around, like those kind of things. So they were going to do some of those kind of tests, but apparently not a full in-space test. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like that means they could just roll it on up into HLS when they need to, but also there's like not insignificant chance that we're all sitting around the TV watching the first people walk on the moon in 60 years, and they have to abort because the suit pressure valve is reading the wrong. The sensors are set too conservatively, and they have to abort the whole thing.
Yeah, or I imagine so it's supposed to be like a 6 or 7 day stay on the surface for that Artemis 3 landing. I bet you one of those days is if we put the suits on and walk around inside the spaceship just to like try them out, and like you do your test right there, right? And like don't even go outside. So yeah, that's my thought. But
we'll have to foil that one too.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't bring any tomatoes.
So here's where I ended up with that. So looking at that Artemis 3 date in 2025 now, I'm like, yeah, not happening. Oops. So I was like, what are all the other Artemis 3 dates? Like, are there any of these that are close? And so already the stuff that Eric leaked that were all like worse are already like the same or past already. Like they're not happening either. The only dates that make sense is the GAO thinks it's going to happen in 27. So that's like, call it a year and a half later. And then you have the Prophet saying two years later. And like, now I'm just kind of like, wow, I wasn't going to doubt the Prophet because obviously, he's been pretty bang on. But like, when that first came out, I was like 2028, my God. But now I'm just like, oh yeah, it's going to be 2028 for sure.
That always made sense to my brain for sure.
Yeah. For the first landing, yeah. So that's interesting, and I have a thought. I have a theory on what might end up happening because of that delay. So I'm looking at this like schedule, like to Artemis 3, kind of right there.
This region, yeah.
And okay, so like look at the other stuff happening around there, right? We have the Halo PPE launch around the same time as Artemis 3, so that's like late 25, and then it takes 9 months to get there. So you have Halo kind of arriving there. What if we change out Artemis 3 to just be a gateway visit? You move it back a year, and then it visits the Halo, right?
You move it back completely a year from this, so Q3 26?
Yeah, delay Artemis 3 1 year, and it becomes just a gateway mission. They go over to the gateway, look at pictures of the moon, check everything out, make sure it works, whatever. Like lots of fun stuff you can do with that. And then that takes all the pressure off the landings. You can do the uncrewed demo around the same time if you want, and put the crewed one back, invent some other mission. Maybe Artemis 4 becomes that mission, and let it happen when it's going to happen. But I am like pretty confident now that Artemis 3 is not going to be the first moon landing. I think, because I don't think you want to go 3 years without an SLS launch. Like, I don't think that's smart. I don't think NASA's going to want that. I don't think anybody wants that,
So Artemis 2.5 is what you're proposing.
Kinda, yeah.
Because that was what Artemis 3.5 was going to be, was putzing around waiting for the next human landing system. So you're saying it's Artemis 2.5, not Artemis 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they're saying in the chat here, Brad saying you can push back EUS too, right? Because that's going to be, you need that for Artemis 4. Now you can push that to, one SLS mission later. You have to order one more ICPS. I have thoughts about that too. We got to talk about that. But if you order one more ICPS, then you can push all that back, and interim becomes even less interim. But
yeah, wait. What's the first thing that's going to use the weird little cargo area under Orion?
Artemis 4 is supposed to be, that's your first mission, right? Baseline now, that's your first mission with the EUS. Yeah, thumbs up, Apple. It's your first. Artemis 4 is the first one with the EUS, and it's going to co-manifest the IHAB module,
the IHAB
right?
thing.
So,
yes.
So you can, here's the nice thing about that, right? You push the first landing back to that. You can still do that. If EUS is ready, great. And IHAB is ready, great. Slap it all in there. They fly that and the astronauts over to the gateway. They can do that, and they can go land on the moon. If it's all ready at the same time, great. But this gives you the flexibility to not have to do that, right? But right now, man, I don't know. I think it's not happening. I don't think it's going to happen.
Let me throw a little spice in your plan here.
Right.
You can tell me what's the right mission for this, but one of those missions does a docking demonstration with the uncrewed SpaceX lander.
Perfect. So send the uncrewed landing demo there.
Right.
Along with Artemis 3. So that gives you 2 years of breathing room on the uncrewed landing. They dock with it and it lands. Do all the demo in one go. Bam.
Boom.
NASA, call me. I'm available for consulting.
This is great. This is great. I mean, that feels like, why not?
It feels like the only thing you can do. Like at this point, it's not even like a good idea. It's just the only deal.
Yeah, Artemis 2.5.
Artemis 2.5. You heard it here first. I'm making a shirt.
Yeah, I mean, that all tracks to my brain. I think the stuff that you were saying about how many Starship flights have to happen to do this, like we're getting to the point where it feels a little bit like the show I did about how many flights Amazon would have to fly to get half the Kuiper sats up in the next 3 years. Or you're just like, that's an amount of launches that doesn't even make sense with what is currently possible on these vehicles. Because like what if you were to do the hockey stick graph of Falcon 9, right? Like we are now in the shaft part of this hockey stick graph. Mm-hmm. Only now. It was a pretty good ramp up. Falcon 9 had the best ramp up.
I put the Falcon rates on the
yeah.
spreadsheet. You can look at it.
Zoom out and look at it. Yeah.
And you can really tell, like it took years to get.
So we got 2014. I'm going to start there and read out every year from that point forward. 6, 7, 8, 18, 21, 13, 26, 31, 61, 90 plus.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Last 2 years it went up.
We are now in the shaft part of that, right? And you look at every other launch vehicle that has existed, including Falcon 9, and what that ramp-up period was like. It is completely implausible that Starship will be as fast as Falcon 9.
Yeah, Starship is not going to launch 33 times in the next 2 years. It just isn't.
It would be incredible, but pads. Right, that's the other thing, is they're just shipping around parts for launch pads right now to make enough of them. They don't even have enough paperwork clearance for that, right? They can launch 5 times or whatever right now based on their current approval.
And like I know they're building a ton of launch pads, and so they have they've got they can use the KSC one that they're LC-39 they can use. That'll be up and running reasonably soon. They're building another one down the coast, I think, on the Air Force Base, right?
They got the Delta IV Heavy.
We were guessing that might be a Starship one, and then they have the big giant thing north of KSC that they want to do, the LC-49, I think
which
is right?
where the old other 39s would have been back in the day.
Yeah, and that one's supposed to be like a lot. That's supposed to be like lots of launch pads.
The whole thing that will just destroy Playa Linda Beach. That's where.
Like that one to me feels like the one, like that's what the infrastructure they need to support a human landing system launch. And like, that's, where are they with that one?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, are they even weighing down the launch pad ground right now on there? I don't know. We're in there with that.
This compaction.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, and that's leaving alone the fact that, like, I trust all the work that they're doing on the refueling, but like there's probably some assumptions that they made that they're gonna have to adjust to, you know.
You got to work through it. It just costs time, right? So yeah, it's interesting.
And the only reason, like, I feel like some people will be like, oh, they're just dunking on Starship's schedule, and it's like we're just trying to figure out what we should care about when, and and like your point, what the rest of the architecture should do, given all these different constraints. You know, like you're right that if you're SpaceX and you care about Starship a lot, you care about the Artemis program a lot, which means you care about SLS's schedule a lot, which means you care about it staying politically viable. You know, for all of the nerd arguments that we've had for decades at this point about SLS and how much it costs and if it should be a thing and what we should do and Richard Shelby this and Richard Shelby that and Bill Nelson and Bob Cabana and all these people, you actually do care about this thing remaining relevant. So if you know that there is scheduled chicken to be played here, what do you do with the rest of the infrastructure? And how do you keep all the they literally are in the business of keeping the stakeholders happy for SLS now while they cover the development gap to HLS. So you were right. The Artemis 2.5 idea is like, I mean, God damn it, we'll hear about it within 6 months probably.
Yeah, I'm almost ready to predict that.
Yeah, what date would you put on it when Bill Nelson first rolls out this take? Oh well, actually, that's a good idea. That's a good thing too. Here, all right, I got it, Jake. I got it. We're going into election year. Bill Nelson will not roll this out until 2025 if he's still the NASA administrator then. He's either, beyond the election and he's still at NASA and he's ready to roll out that bad news, or he's just going to let it lapse and pass it on to the next person. So we have a full year before we're going to hear about this.
That's the other implication that we don't really have time to get too deep into, but like, if the Artemis 3 delays as much as we think it is, like let's say it does hit early 2028, that's like maybe 2 presidents from now, okay? And like that's a lot of stuff to go through, right? Because like Trump can't run for a 3rd term, so it's going to be like someone new in 2028.
Yes, I mean, per the topic of the debate the other night, Father Time might have something to say about that by 2028 for sure.
Yeah. So okay, so
but that doesn't matter anymore, right? Like,
I mean, it
here's the only way it matters,
but it still matters.
No, but the only way it matters is in the good direction, where you can come in and say, listen, part of the transition team, we reassessed this whole situation, and the bad team where the Dallas Cowboys were hiding schedule for us, and us, the Philadelphia Eagles, are the good guys. I'm totally transplanting my own personal experience onto this so as to not be partisan. But we took a realistic look at this, and, the Cowboys got it wrong. The Eagles are now here to say it was 2028. And then, I mean, that's what happened the last election, was like, we're rebaselining. And Artemis 2 and 3.5 are now going to be willed into the schedule. Yeah, the naming is interesting. I wonder, because like the agreements were written around named Artemis missions, right?
The agreements,
like the agreements for the other HLS, the Blue Origin one, the what was the special name for that? SLD or whatever.
Sustaining lunar development.
Like that said, like Artemis 4, didn't it?
Yeah. I bet you that's not in the contract though. Like,
I don't know. Gotta look. I thought that's why like the halves came about.
Yeah, maybe. I think they were just trying to keep
which just makes me even worse.
So that 4 stayed the same mission every time, right? Because 3.5 was supposed to be a new mission slotted in, it literally was an extra order of SLS, right?
True, but also this Roman numeral 0.5 thing is worse than the Spaceship 2, Spaceship 3 debacle.
Yeah, I know. I had to translate it over just because I hated it so much. I even initially wrote this Artemis 1, 2, 3 with real numbers, and then I was like, no, I gotta go change it back to Roman numerals so I could put dash 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 0.5 and hate it. Anyway,
the worst. The worst. Yeah. All right, so we're thinking we're a year out at a minimum. I mean, we're probably, so let's see, election happens, there either is a transition team or there's not, but either way, it's probably February of 26 when 25 when we hear about, it's the budget rollout for February and March of 25 where we hear about the new schedule.
Yeah, but the budget, okay, I guess it depends, because if it's a new transition, then the budget won't come out till May or June or something, right?
Yeah, and also Artemis 3 is gonna fly. Through two. Sorry.
2 will, two is gonna fly right at the end of, or in that period maybe, right? So
too much. That's too much all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that all has to get resolved before we'll hear anything on this. I don't think so. But anyway.
And that's all assuming the Orion stuff goes well in Artemis II.
Yep.
56 minutes in, we get there.
If you want to go down a real dark path, I was like, so normally like everything past Artemis III on this list, so all the 4, all the gateway stuff, to me that is all just make believe.
It's fictional, yeah.
All the dates in there mean absolutely nothing to me. They're just like, that's just a notional order. But I was like, Artemis 4. I'm like, what's on the critical path for Artemis 4? And I was like, okay, so Artemis 3, you have like, 2 companies really driving the critical path there. You got SpaceX and you have Axiom. It's like, okay, well, those are like new space startup-y style companies. They move pretty quick. Who's on the critical path for Artemis 4? Bechtel, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Thales Alenia,
Europe, SpaceX, Dragon 2 or Dragon XL.
Sure, SpaceX, and then
you have to have the logistics to the gateway to have them at the gateway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there were 6. The other one was anyway. It was another old space company of some kind, but like the Artemis 4 timeline, very dark. It's gonna get like you can definitely tell the Artemis 4 is like where we put everything we don't know what we're gonna do yet. That's gonna happen.
I've called it the junk drawer mission. That's a junk drawer.
Yeah, it's like it's gonna have the EUS. It's gonna build a gateway. It's gonna send all the international astronauts. It's gonna have a landing. It's gonna have this and that. Like, no, dude. Like, this is not a. Oh my God, that mission does not exist yet. It is. No one has any idea what that's gonna be yet.
And you're just not going far enough out to talk about Canadarm3. You don't want to, talk shit about your.
It's all make believe right now, man.
Yeah, that is pretty dark. Yeah.
We can pay him to build it. Doesn't mean we need to fly it.
There's plenty of space stations for that to go to. Yeah.
There
might not be. There might be none. There might be no space stations for it to go to. That's the other aspect about all this. I have major stress about the next 10 years of this roadmap because you factor in the ISS and LEO stuff, and it's like unknowable how this is going to shake out, which is the fun part, but also distressing. So
one more wrench for my plan. So this ICPS I mentioned, right?
Oh, yeah.
You want to order another one of that. How much longer are they going to make ULA hold up that freaking factory line to make that? Like that's hard for them.
Probably got to put that order in now. Yeah.
Tori's like, I'm trying to sell this thing, and I got to have
right
people that know how to make a Delta IUS. I got to shut it down, guys. Like, are you buying it or not? And if they can't buy it, what do
you do?
What if Blue buys them tomorrow and then
they'd substitute their own upper stage like they tried to last time?
You can buy a Jarvis for your IUS to do your whatever.
I mean, that's honestly would be the plan. Like they bid the last time.
Yeah. There's some extra wild cards that could come from that. So
chaos reigns in the Artemis manifest.
Anyway, NASA, call me. I have some ideas. I'm happy to talk through with them. For the cost of one FOIA request.
Yeah. Just comp the $250 I'm about to spend on finding a picture of a shriveled tomato. we would totally come in as contractors on this for the price of that photo of that tomato. Yeah. Someone definitely took a picture of that tomato. They take a picture of everything on the ISS.
Of course.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was uplifting or not, but the Starship launch was friggin' awesome. I loved it.
Starship launch was great.
I was shouting. My 3-year-old Will was jumping up and down, excited because I was excited, and it's fantastic. So
it was fantastic. They nailed it as much as you can nail a flight that blows up twice,
which is incredibly nailed, for the record.
Yeah. So I can't wait.
Yeah.
IFT3. Maybe this one will actually go to orbit. They're supposed to do a fuel transfer demo. We'll see.
As soon as.
They did walk back that commitment real fast. So.
Because those PowerPoints were made before IFT2 flew. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
what do we got next week, Jake? We got a good one.
Yeah. We are going to talk about some of the reasons for these delays.
Yes.
We're gonna dig into that. We're gonna find out. I've always wanted to get to because there's so much FUD on FAA. There's like people being like, FAA is the worst thing that's ever happened to spaceflight, and they don't know what they're doing. And then I got a bunch of other people that are like FAA boosters, like, you don't disrespect the workers. They're working hard. They're doing everything they can. They are working, And I'm like, I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't know what's true. I don't know if the FAA is a problem or a godsend or somewhere in the middle. So we're gonna dig into that with your buddy,
Tom Murata. Yes.
Tom Murata.
Runs the spaceport company, worked at that FAA office. So we are going to dig into specific issues, like, was the walk to the water cooler too long, and that's what took so long with all these other approvals, or what was the actual issue? Yeah. You said all that, and made me realize the FAA is the FAA, or it's the regulatory version of radiation in deep space. Like, is this going to kill us all, or is it fine? Will we ever know until we get there? Yeah, it's like there's a couple of these issues that... Yeah. I know we had an episode titled Boil Off Truther, but I don't remember what that was about. Like,
it's the same thing. I'm like, is Boil Off a problem? Okay. We're going to find out soon. We're going to find out soon. How many Starship launches does it take to refuel a Starship? Yeah. It could be 12 if Boil Off isn't a problem. It could be 35 if it's a big problem.
So good. Oh, man. All right, everybody. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. You're the best.
Thanks, everybody.
I have no idea how successful this show was, so let us know, and see you later. Bye.